Well, the More Train initiative is basically a communication initiative that we have now for 1 year, where we are trying to begin to respond to a very simple question. That is, we don't really know what looks like a city or a country where the modal share of rail and public transport will be above 40%. We don't really know, and we also don't really know what will happen. And generally speaking, we have much more active mobilities in our cities. So we need to respond to this question, and that's what we are trying with this initiative, to show what could be the urban organization, what could be the way of linking the different cities, preferably with rail, because UIC is about rail, but it's also the most environmentally friendly mode of transport, because we are pretty much convinced that modal shift to rail and public transport is definitely part of the solution for reaching the goal of the NDCs. Rail is about 8% of the passenger traffic and 17% of the freight traffic, but it's accounting for 0.5% of the global emission of transport. That means that if you have a modern railway system, like it is in Europe, 10% of modal shift is 10% of the decarbonization objective, or pretty much so. And the important point is there we are speaking about existing technologies. We are not speaking about innovations that shall come in 5, 10 or 20 years. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is that we all know that we will increasingly live in cities. Today, 57% of the world population is living in cities. Cities are already responsible for 70% of the emission, and we need to find a solution there. As soon as you have the duty to have more and more people traveling by rail, for some links you need to have high speed. You need to have high speed together with conventional rail, together with public transport, so the needs are growing and the investment are growing. And it was a symbol for UIC to have our last high-speed congress in Morocco. Why? Because Morocco is the first African country with an actual high-speed line, 300 kilometers between Rabat and Tangier. And the effects are really very positive, because there have been a very big modal shift to rail between the two towns, and the fact that they have made this very modern infrastructure made that they also could modernize conventional train with more traffic, and they have also invested in a tram system both in Rabat and Tangier. And that's an illustration that this transport organization is not only future-proof from an environmental point of view, but it's also something desirable also in the developing countries. Rail has almost no negative externalities, but we are paying all the external costs. If you compared with the automotive sector, for instance, which is not paying for the external cost. So we need a system where we can have financing for infrastructures that will rely on the decarbonization objectives. In a nutshell, we all know that for some industries it will be very difficult, or perhaps impossible, to actually decarbonize everything. So at some point they will need to invest in compensation. And there will be a huge market about all those carbon market products. There will be a huge market for compensation, and we need to build a financing scheme where those compensation for the negative externalities of the other mode could be used for financing rail and public transport. I do think that there are more and more people that are realizing that the transport paradigm, in particular in cities that we are living in today, is not sustainable even day to day, because there is too much congestion, there is a dysfunctional cities. We are living that more or less in our Western country, but if you go to the cities in the developing country, if you go to Cairo, if you go to Nairobi, you will see that it's indeed very clear that transport paradigm that is based on cars, even if they are electrified, is not sustainable. So I do think that indeed there will be a move towards new system of transport, and I come back to what I said in the beginning. We don't know exactly what will be the exact proportion of the different. What we know is that there will be more trains. That is behind me. Yeah, absolutely. But how we will achieve that, I think that's something we should really discuss. And the only plea that I will make from the rail sector perspective is that this kind of objective, in particular in the NDC of the UN, the objective for decarbonation, should be made visible and discussed.